is that they are creating sort of a codependency and an enabling. And it actually, as the rescuer, they're cementing this power dynamic, this drama dynamic, because the more the rescuer comes to the rescue of the victim, the more they are keeping or helping the victim see themselves as a victim and as helpless. So again, it's really important that they recognize that as much as sometimes we want to sort of step in and save people, the best thing, and Amber will review this during the empowerment triangle, is to support them in helping them see what the solutions may be for themselves, as opposed to taking it on. Because there's a huge burden that the rescuer carries when they jump in and try to protect and save the victim.
And the rescuer can get worn out, right? And the rescuer can think that they are in the good position because they're rescuing. But what do rescuers usually do? They tell people what they should do. They should all over them, right? And this is a reflection of maybe how much they care in their own personal experiences and wisdom that they gain. But what works for you may not work for someone else. And how could you, as a rescuer, be keeping the drama going? Michelle kind of hinted towards that. It's like that dependency that the person has on you, or the people in that dynamic have, where they come to you and they tell you. If this is in a friendship dynamic, you may be the friend that everyone comes to when something goes wrong, and they're like, girl, such and such did this and that and the other, and they're not always recognizing their own ability to go within, search their inner wisdom, and transform the drama. We get addicted to telling our stories. We get addicted to the roles that we play, to being the victim, to making ourselves right so other people can be wrong. But what does that do? It just keeps the drama going, right? And so, this is a part of why we're having this juicy discussion today, because like Mary J. Blige, we want no more drama. Michelle, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, yes. So, this is just a further diagram that helps to explain, and this is a scenario of a husband and a wife, right? So there are various roles that in this instance, they call it a racket. I made reference to it earlier on. And, in each person has one or two favorite positions in this drama triangle. So when we think about the scenario of a husband and a wife, here, the husband, that's recognized with the H, has adopted the helper role, and the wife is sort of the victim. And the husband is positioning himself to really kind of exchange complementary transactions that sort of help the wife, in this instance, stay a victim. Now, what Amber made reference to in terms of the role of the rescuer is important. Sometimes they may give advice, but most times they're even taking on, I'll do it for you. So that's where it really becomes an enabling and a codependency, because, they're seeing the victim, in this case, the husband, is seeing the wife as helpless, whether it's doing the taxes, whether it's taking care of the kid, whatever this, scenario might entail. But the more the rescuer comes to the aid of the victim and takes on what the challenges that the victim can't necessarily handle, the more they are weakening the position that the victim has. So again, this is just interesting how in this case, there may not be a persecutor. The persecutors may be the kids, right? Where the kids are becoming very sort of demanding, and the wife as the victim just can't damsel in distress, that I'm too stressed out, I can't do it. And the husband sort of steps in and says, don't worry about it, I'll discipline the kids. And it just sort of, creates this whole drama within a dynamic. And for the sense of confidentiality, I had a coaching session with a client yesterday, and she was making reference to how powerless she feels in disciplining her kids. And I was using this drama triangle as an example so that she could really see how she's positioning herself as the victim. The kids, have these meltdowns and temper tantrums whenever she tries to discipline them. And because she's not stepped into becoming empowered, she's leaving the whole disciplinary issue to her husband, which again is weakening her position and actually even strengthening the kids, feeling that they have more power on her. So, yeah, this is how this whole sort of racket or game gets played. And there's a payoff, believe it or not, in the sense that, as Ayala Ben says, there's always, a payoff. We always get something out of it, which may not feel good, but ultimately, the more we feel victimized, the more we are looking for other people to kind of step in, and we don't necessarily want to or feel we can take control or power over our situation.
Michelle, I'm getting
So we
excited
want.
over here because it just is so frequent that and I know we're about to open up for discussion, but you just made me think of a friend that I have, that she'll always call and she'll tell me a story and she'll tell me how she's the victim oftentimes, and she gets excited to be in that position, like as if it's confirmed, what she believed is confirmed and true. See, everyone's always doing something to me, and that excites her. And I have to remind her that's not a position that is serving you well. Do you want to stay the victim, or do you want to flip the script, which we're going to talk about in a moment? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I'm just getting all excited.
So this is where, we want you to go into sort of a bit of reflection. So we really want to hear from you, for those who want to be fully self-expressed and bring a bit of transparency to your issue, so that we can really sort of support you, because as Amber said in the beginning, your story is our story. So think of or share an example of a drama that you're experiencing in the workplace, if one exists. And even if it doesn't exist within the workplace, is there a drama dynamic that you're even experiencing in your personal life? And given the roles that I've just reviewed with you, what do you believe the role is that you're playing out, right? Are you being the villain? Are you being the victim? Or are you being the rescuer? So take a moment and reflect. And absolutely, we welcome anyone who is bold to be able to kind of share, so that we do a little bit of a deep dive and can explore further how this is happening in your life.
Morning. I'm going to jump in. I missed these
Thanks.
discussions. I haven't been on the call in a while, just because with work and me being the rescuer at the job, I just
Ah,
don't have time. I've been working from home since last March. I was doing everything. They hired 2 people that I worked with before. I didn't sign on for one of the hires because I knew his work ethic, but they liked him better because there's a whole 3 persons got an interview. So it was 2 to 1. I'm like, I told you guys I worked with him for 6 years, but they liked him more. And I've been rescuing him since he started. Nothing's changed. He always is a victim, always drama in his life. And it brought that drama here. And it was like, I can't rely on him anymore. So right now, he's the victim, I'm the rescuer. And then they also brought in another person at my same level. And they just came from somewhere different, and they weren't used to working on that, because I work in advertising. So they don't have the mindset. So I did a 6 months check-in with my boss. And she's like, is he doing better? I was like, no comment, because I already told her, she's seen his drama. So I'm stepping back, because I was like supervising them, but I'm not really their supervisor. So I step back from being the rescuer, because I'm like, I can't rescue people that don't really want to be rescued. I was like, you brought these people in, I didn't really sign off on them. And I'm just can't rely on them to do what I need them to do. So that means I had to step up. I'm still rescuing and saving, but I don't necessarily want that role anymore. But when it comes to work, you don't want things to fall to the wayside, especially when you have more experience than the next person. So
got it.
I'm working
And
on it. Lately, I've been
yeah,
stepping back and not rescuing them. I can only rescue myself. Make sure what I'm supposed to be done is done. Everybody's going to have to figure it out on their own. But that's where I'm at with that. Hence why I haven't been on these calls lately. But now that I'm back, I will make the time if I can. So, but this is.
We welcome you back and thank you so much for sharing. So Jewel, what you're referencing is quite identifiable because your work ethic's probably stellar. And in this instance, who do you think the persecutor is? Or what do you think the persecutor is? What's the source of that?
I think the persecutor actually is the work at this point. It doesn't necessarily have to be the person. It's just the amount of work we have to do. And they didn't understand it when they just came from pushing paper and pushing the money, right?
Mhm.
I used to do that 7 years, but then I worked on the agency at least for 6. There's a different mindset. You have no relationships with agents. You don't know how to negotiate. I'm like, I've done all these things. And it was like, so the persecutor to me is the work because it never ends. It never stops. Like
You're
right now,
absolutely right. You're
this
absolutely right.
one
That's why
computer,
I
but then I
referenced
have
the
my 2
question.
computers like right here. Like it never ends.
Right.
So
Right.
this is
So
the difference.
that's why I referenced the question, who or what, right? So what we want to identify is the persecutor doesn't necessarily have to be a person. It could be a thing. It could be tasks and responsibilities. So yeah, we want to leave room for someone else to kind of share because we're going to, transition to the empowerment at the top of the hour. And Jewel, hold tight to your intention to overcome your rescuer tendencies. And there's 2 things. One is, where else are you showing up as a rescuer, right? Because everywhere we go, there we are, right? So this is not a surprise. And also, again, when Amber walks us through sort of the empowerment, it's what we could be doing to overturn the, in this instance, rescuer role and how we can become, they call it the coach. So yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Jewel. Does anyone else have a scenario that they want to share with us?
Yes, and I'm sorry, I see Jen that you want to share too, and we want to give you a moment to share. But Joel, I just want you to also encourage you to speak next time after we go through the next section. And once you learn about that shift, tell us how that may have shifted your mindset towards the role that you're playing in that situation. Okay, thank you. Okay, Jen, would you like to share?
Well, I'd love to. I just feel like the flip side of that, like that example with the parent just like hit home for me. And then just now hearing wherever you go, that's where you are. I repeat, even in my work life, this kind of like, I have this issue. I'm running like the last minute email. Like I'm just shaking my head in recognition that the victimhood role really gives me an out for showing up in certain ways. And I have a lot of shame and like a lot of like hiding that's been happening. And yet, my new career, I've kind of left teaching where it's very easy to hide to writing books. And so it's just like all me. And I'm going through a crazy growth spurt. So I'm hearing all this empowerment. My husband and I are separated. And so now it really is only me in the house. Like the kids will stay up and watch YouTube until 2 a.m. here and then go to his house. So, I mean, I don't have any insight. I'm just saying it's the victim role I don't know, as wimpy as it sounds, is like what I know. And I play that role. So I'm just kind of in a groove. And I'm just so grateful to hear some insight around this. Like I guess I'm just raising my hand, like I'm listening, and I'm really excited.
Absolutely. And you raise a really good point, Jen, in that it becomes comfortable, right? And depending upon how many instances throughout life it's gotten comfortable to kind of sit back as a victim, because it means that hopefully someone is going to show up, and inevitably they do, as a rescuer. And it is a continuation of a dynamic that we want to start a redirection. So, we're grateful that you're attending this call today, because our hope, especially when we go through the empowerment, is what you can be doing to really empower yourself to break that code, break that pattern, and find your inner resolve, your inner strength to no longer find resolve in playing the victim, but really being more in control. Yeah. Do we have time for someone else to share? Amber?
I see
I think
Katrina
maybe, yeah.
unmuting. We have another couple minutes. Katrina, would you like to share before we move on? Oh, or maybe that was a slip of the finger.
Um,
Uh, okay. All right. Anyone else want to share any ahas, woohoos, or ha's? Any questions about what we've gone through in the last few minutes? Okay. All right, so let's jump back in and talk about the empowerment dynamic. And welcome, Gwen. I just saw you pop in. It's so great to have new faces with us. And I'm just excited to also see some of my old high school buddies on here. Love to have you all join us. And so great to have you with us. All right, I love this quote. Nobody I clapped when I said it. That means I was really excited. Nobody can hurt me without my permission. This is a quote from Mahatma Gandhi. So let's talk about the empowerment dynamic and how we flip the script, as I'll call it. So I'm going to give you just an overview, and then we're going to dig into each of the roles as Michelle did in the first part of this. So how to ditch that victim mentality and become empowered, because again, being a victim is a choice, and being a victim is easy. It's easy to get into that victim space, right? And so the challenge is transforming, is shifting out of that. And the antidote, as described as the antidote to David Emerald's drama triangle, is called the empowerment dynamic, or TED for short. Now, this is not something that we made up. This is a whole concept in psychology. You can look it up and do more research on it yourself after this. As a matter of fact, I encourage you to. Michelle had a good book reference for it that she'll drop.
David, let me just reference David Emerald's book, The
Yeah.
TED. It's, yeah, all of this is that model that was created. So yeah, you can make reference to David Emerald.
Yes, yes, yes. So the victims focus on the problems, and creators get clear on what they want and become empowered to create outcomes for their own lives. So we're going to talk about shifting from becoming a victim, from being a victim, to looking at your circumstance as the opportunity to become a creator. Right? So to create opportunity to learn from the situation that you're in and expand into a better situation next time. That's where the shift lies for victims. Victims become creators. Now the persecutors become the challengers. So if it's that if naturally within you, it's it doesn't always have to be a bad thing that you're pointing out things that people improve on. A persecutor may be in a leadership role, and a part of the improvement that they can seek in their team is in pointing out where they need to improve, but it's just how you do it. And so when a persecutor becomes a challenger, they're able to help their team learn and grow in their journey of self-exploration instead of putting them down and making them feel that they cannot. Now that could also apply as a parent, right? And so the parent can go from being a persecutor to being a challenger. Lastly, we have the rescuers. Instead of being a rescuer in the empowerment dynamic, you shift to becoming a coach, someone who's supportive and sees that person as whole, that they can solve their own problems, so that you as the rescuer are not rescuing them anymore. You're igniting their own ability, their own power within to solve their problems, and seeing them as whole and able to do so. And so when you are shifting it to the coach position, you're helping the victim, who's now the creator, move toward their desired outcome. All right, let's jump in and see what this looks like. So flipping the script, just have this slide for you just to reference so you can make note of where you go from what to what. And this will be referenced in the upcoming slides. But again, that rescuer goes into the coach mode, the persecutor goes into the challenger mode, and the victim goes into the creator mode. And so what could that sound like? Well, let's start with the challenger. Let's start with the victim. Instead of feeling like I'm the victim, poor me, I'm powerless, I'm hopeless, I'm stuck, the victim shifts to a growth mindset, which we've talked about a lot in the past. They shift from judging themselves so much to learning from their situation, and they adopt a can-do attitude, an outcome-focused attitude. Now, the persecutor, the one that may have been, oh, it's all their fault. The victim is saying, but I'm the good one and they're the bad one, and I do this right and they do this wrong, right? Because our ego, if we talk about A Course in Miracles, which, Michelle and I love to talk about, our ego gets us in this position where we want to feel like someone else is wrong so that we can be right. But that can be disempowering, right? Okay, and so the challenger, the villain, is often is expanded now from being the persecutor, the villain, to the challenger. And instead of pointing out things in a negative light, adopting that can do attitude for the person. You can do this. They're building the other person up and encouraging their learning and their growth as opposed to putting them down. And so the challenger may also become the coach, because we know that we can occupy two different positions at the same time. And so the coach's attitude is now, how will you do it? What do you need? You're supporting and assisting and facilitating the desired outcome in drama or in conflict or in that dynamic, that relationship, as opposed to just rescuing and saying, I can do it for you. It's saying, what can you do for yourself? How can you work with what you have to get your desired outcome? How can you overcome this challenge? You can do it. I'm your cheerleader. I'm here for you, but I'm not going to carry this weight on my shoulders. I'm not going to do this for you. All right, so let's jump into each of these roles. Victim to creator. A creator's responses are based on thoughtful evaluation of a situation. So thinking of the situation and not just looking for the problems, but looking for the solution, and then choosing appropriate steps towards an outcome rather than reacting from a problem-focused orientation. And also, rather than just running to the rescuer, running to someone else to save them. That victim has to in becoming a creator, has to recognize that there needs to be some time for reflection, right? If your knee-jerk reaction is just to go run off and ask somebody else to fix the problem, then you're disempowering yourself. You're not taking the time to create your own solutions. That's why I love looking at this shifted role to creator. So in doing so, the creator is working towards a desired outcome instead of reacting to avoiding and fixing problems. Stuff happens in life and work. As a creator, one is always at choice as how they are going to respond. So I love this because it highlights that you have a choice in how you respond, right? And so if you're looking at yourself as poor you, as this is everyone's doing this to me. Your choice is to sink into that space as the victim, but you can also choose to be empowered and to think, how am I going to move out of this situation? How am I going to flip the script? How am I going to get my shift together? And how am I going to be empowered in this situation? Now we'll come back to talking about.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Oh,
was
no,
interrupting.
no.
I want to make sure before you go to the next one.
Please.
Okay. So I want to slow it down just a little bit, meaning depending upon how many of us can identify with demonstrating sort of the victim mindset, it's like a pattern of behaviors and a way of thinking that has been operating maybe since childhood. So when I say slow the pace, it's an invitation to practice emotional intelligence, which is about being aware of when your mindset or your inner voice tells you, I can't, right? I can't do this. Be forgiving, be in the moment of acceptance where you are, because you're not going to change overnight. Just because we're offering you these tools in shifting doesn't necessarily mean that the light bulb's going to go off and you're going to be able to react differently the next time a situation or circumstance happens. So be patient with yourself. It's a process, and turn that I can't into I can. Even if it means with the shift to I can, you may not even be aware of what you can be doing differently or better. So be patient with yourself, whether it's I'm so used to being overwhelmed with the kids, disciplining them, or I'm so used to feeling overwhelmed with the level of tasks and work responsibilities that I have to take on. I don't even know how to become the creator. I don't even know how to push back tactfully or diplomatically. But the more we speak to the I can, our higher self, the universe, is going to give us the tools and the techniques and the strategies and the actions. It may not come immediately to mind, but again, we just want to encourage you to just pause for a moment and not stay in default mode, but allow yourself to be open and receptive to what the I can in you can transition into.
Yeah, Michelle, and I'm glad that you stopped just to slow down a bit, because I know that we're delivering a lot of information at once. And as you said, this can be rooted in our childhood. And it's not, sometimes it's not until we have new skills and new tools to put to use that we feel empowered to make a shift, which is why we thought this session would be so helpful for folks. So thanks for slowing us down. Okay. I wish we had more than an hour to discuss all of this. This is good stuff. If you're learning anything, drop a yes in the chat. If you've had a moment of clarity at some point in
An
the last
aha moment, as Oprah would say.
aha moment, yeah, let us know about it in the chat. You can start to share your thoughts there, and then we're going to have another discussion after the next couple slides. All right, so the challenger, let's talk more about the challenger, going from the villain to the challenger, or the persecutor to the challenger. The challenger is focused on learning and growth, holding a creator accountable while encouraging learning, action, and next steps. A challenger consciously builds others up as a positive alternative to putting someone down by criticizing, blaming, or controlling. Challengers ask themselves, what's my intention? To look good, a function of the ego, or to further learning and growth? A challenger approaches life and relationships with a learning intent and builds up rather than putting down. Now, I love this because, again, going back to that growth mindset and the learner path, as we call it, the choice to learn, to do something differently, to grow and expand in a situation that can be challenging, as opposed to sinking back into our old ways, right? It takes work to do something different. It takes work to have a knee-jerk reaction and recognize how to respond differently, how to not go back to that response that's so comfortable for us. And so Michelle mentioned emotional intelligence. And what Michelle is one of my wonderful mentors. And one of my other mentors would always say about emotional intelligence is it's our ability to notice, name, and navigate. And so now this is highlighting our ability to notice the role that we're playing, name it, and say, okay, I'm doing that again. And now giving you some alternatives to navigate. So if you find yourself as a persecutor, as a bully, sometimes as the villain, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a bad position. You can bring out the greatness in people with your own natural disposition of who you are. But the key is to change the intention, changing the intention from putting someone down to lifting someone up. Not just pointing out what's wrong, but pointing out what's right. Being more descriptive in criticism. Criticism hurts when it's just point blank blunt and that's it. If I just say, you're doing that wrong, that can make someone feel bad. But if I say you're not quite doing that right, and the alternative is to do this, when you do that, it's specifically wrong because you're not taking into consideration yada yada yada. If I give more detail in my criticism, and then I point out a solution, then I'm empowering the person not to just feel that they've done wrong, but to actually recognize how they can do something differently and giving them the opportunity to do so. Right? Okay. So being a challenger does not have to be being a persecutor doesn't have to be a bad thing when you flip the script and make your role as the challenger and empowering.
So there's something else that because I want to make reference to Jules' example that in her instance, the persecutor was a task where all of the work responsibilities, right? So in this instance, it's an inanimate object. And what we're encouraging you and inviting you to think about, Jewel, in this particular instance, since you kind of saw it yourself as the rescuer, is becoming, a coach, or even not challenging the tasks, but actually maybe even becoming the creator. What can be done to reset the priorities of the tasks, or even to, with your boss's support, reallocate some of the responsibilities that you would normally take on to other people. So again, we want you to be thinking, anyone else who is seeing the persecutor as kind of an inanimate object, and it's not necessarily a person, but it's a thing. It's what the role that you can take on in terms of creator and coach to solve and try to create, another scenario where you're not feeling as overwhelmed. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about that coach role, going from rescuer to coach. The coach uses compassion and questions to help a creator develop a vision and an action plan. So in coaching, if any of you are coaches or ever looking into coaching, one of the first things that they tell you is to adopt a coach's mindset. And instead of giving advice, ask questions. And so you're looking to uncover what that person needs, what that person wants, and not just projecting your own needs or not projecting your own needs and wants on them. So you're looking to understand what the vision is of the person, of how the situation could be better, and helping them to develop an action plan. A coach is providing encouragement and support in place of rescuing actions. How can I cheer you on to do what I know that you can do instead of just doing it for you? You know, it's like the quote, teach a man to fish and he can fish for life. Instead of just giving him a fish, you want to teach him to fish, right? And support along the way. Despite having helpful intentions, the rescuer as a person reinforces the victim's poor me self-identity. Michelle talked about this. That's that reinforcement of the sense of powerlessness. But alternatively, in the coaching position, you're supporting and keeping the power that the other person has and encouraging their independence and interdependence on the folks that you're serving. So what is this? This renders the victim dependent upon the rescuer. Okay, so we talked about that. So that coach's mindset, you have everything that you need to shift the dynamic. And I'm going to support you, but I'm not going to do it for you. Asking empowering questions is a great part about being a coach, not just asking what happened and then letting the person go off on a tangent and complain and go on a negative spiral and get into all of the drama that happened. But so saying, okay, now you've vented, you've gotten this out. Now how would you like to move forward? Michelle, I want to leave some space before we get into the reflection, just for you to speak to that too, especially as a coach and with coaching skills, just that position, that role that someone can play as a coach instead of a rescuer.
I love it. So there's a term called the coach approach, and it's actually a derivative. It's called Socratic inquiring, Socratic questioning. And when you're moving from rescuer, which is da 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 da, I will take it on, I will do it for you, the coach goes in and literally asks open-ended questions, which is what Socratic questioning is. Well, what can you do differently or better? Or how can you solve this problem? And looks to redirect the power dynamic from I'll take it on to I know you can do this, right? So what Amber and I do as coaches, we are champions, we are cheerleaders. We don't take on the tasks of the goals that our clients bring to us. We literally ask them open-ended questions in terms of asking them to uncover, maybe deep beneath the surface of their conscious, what is it that you could do? Even what are your fears? What are your concerns? It's stepping aside and not taking on the responsibility, but being a bit of a supportive, I'm going to call it an enabler, but an enabler in a favorable and a positive way and an encourager, because the coach in this instance is really helping the victim in this scenario realize that they truly do have the answers. And all they're doing is, providing some generous listening and open up the portal of, we know you can do it. So yeah, it's the coach approach. And if you want to look up Socratic questioning, there's a whole list of questions that as a coach, you can ask someone, even if it's your kids. I don't want, well, what's the reward for, doing your homework? What is the consequence? It's asking the question as opposed to you need to do this, or that's all right. You know what? Let me help you with the paper because, you've wasted time and not studying for that exam or doing your homework. So it's, releasing yourself from feeling that you got to take on the responsibilities of the victim.
Yeah, I'm so glad that parenting has come into the conversation as well because, I mean, one, in leadership roles, sometimes we can feel like the parents at work, but also as parents at home, it's I find that it's so often that folks are challenged with not wanting to let their children experience hardship or pains, and so we often become rescuers for our children. But it's better, I believe, as a parent, I have two children, that it's better to I'd rather let my child bump their knee so they don't bump their head later. So sometimes we have to loosen the reins and let people make their own mistake and then be there to help them fix it, be there to help them recognize their ability to fix it after, in order for them to grow, because it's just all a part of the process. So let's take a deep breath. That was a lot, right?
Yeah.
You might have gone, oh man, I'm a persecutor. Oh man, I'm a victim. Oh my gosh, I've been the rescuer. So let's talk about what role you could have played in the empowerment dynamic. So just giving you a moment of reflection to think about, now that you know the shift of from the drama triangle to the empowerment dynamic. What switch can you make in your own personal examples to become empowered? I seen Desi doing a lot of head shaking, and yes, Desi, I see your hand going up. So we would love for you to jump in and get us started in this discussion.
Hi, ladies. How are you? It's so good to see
Good.
you all.
Always
It
good to
really
see you, Desi.
is. Well, I'm sitting here. I feel like I need a church fan because I just think, like, yes. But what is also interesting to me is and someone can jump in and say if this is different than their experience, but I would say that if you have that role in your personal life, it probably translates into other relationships like friendships or professional relationships. And so I do find that I am a rescuer, and I find that that tends to be my role in most. But given the terror of white supremacy and patriarchy, certainly when you get into certain roles like work positions, those can shift a little bit. But I do find oftentimes that I would say in my friendships as well as in um, my professional role, I would say for me, because my work is so intertwined, like my personal is professional, my professional is personal, because I work around the social justice space as an educator and I work in the media. And so I find that that desire to fix is sort of intertwined professionally and personally for me. But one other thing that I think that I have found is that because many things in terms of communication were very difficult for me in my childhood with my family unit, um, I think my desire to not be a victim shifted me into the rescuer space and the fixer space. And so I I find that when that pendulum swings really far in either direction, it doesn't leave space for, like, I don't have a desire to be a victim, but I do find oftentimes that I forget that I need attention and love and care and help and support as well. And so my consistent role of being a fixer and a rescuer oftentimes doesn't give me space to get that kind of coaching and support that sometimes I need. So I do find that I have to really kind of stop and resist my desire to always want to fix and help. And I do find that in doing so, it gives me a little bit more space to not be depleted as the fixer and as the rescuer, because I find that it is very depleting. And so shifting from being the rescuer, I find gives me more space to be coached and to be helped. And yeah, those were some of the revelations
Yeah,
that
and you raise a really good point, Desi, because so you certainly don't want to shift into victim, but we hear you say that you want to be on the receiving end, and that is what you as the recovering rescuer can play as the creator, right? Because the creator in you says, I need help, I want support. Now, what is it that I can do differently or better in terms of how I'm responding to other people And how do I ask for support when I need it, right? So it doesn't make you the victim. It is part of that empowerment dynamic where you're shifting from being the rescuer into being a creator for yourself.
Right. And learning how to ask for help and being really specific about it, I find is
Right.
extremely helpful.
That's right. And the other thing that just came to me intuitively is being vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable as a creator, right? Because, we may feel that we're super women and your, wingspan and your capacity and your tolerance is probably exponentially higher than the average person. But when we show vulnerability to be able to say, I need, I want, is what the role of a creator could transition into, because you're saying, you know what, I'm going to honor my inner needs and wants and desires and be vulnerable and courageous enough to kind of ask for it, and not have it strip your power or your strength, or your tenacity. If anything, as Dr. Brene Brown talks in her book, vulnerability is the ultimate act of courage. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad that we brought vulnerability into this, because as women, we so often want to, and especially as women of color, we so often want to appear as if we have it all together. And so that means that oftentimes we feel like we cannot ask for the help and the support that we need. But Desi, as you said, and adding to Michelle's point, as you said, being specific about the support that you need. It's not that you need help in everything. I need help in this specific place. That is such a courageous act. And that's what Brene Brown says about vulnerability, right? And that it's a courageous act, because when we get stuck in the shame, the fixed mindset of I can't do something, or I'm not doing it yet the way that I want to, we can really let that stifle us and stop us from reaching our full potential if we're not just honest about it and vulnerable enough to communicate the specific support that we need. So I just want to celebrate that you said that and highlighted that, and that's the attitude and approach that you take. We always learn so much. We come on here and we share, and then we learn so much from what you all say. So Desi, thank you for always showing up and always sharing such great insight with us. Before we go, Joelle, I see that you're unmuting. Would you like to say something? We just have like about a minute.
I'll make it quick, because the vulnerable part really stood out, because why I hadn't been making a lot of meetings, because I decided to get off the sidelines and start speaking out at my job with the DE&I initiative, with the Women's Movement initiative. So being vulnerable when you decide to speak out is you putting yourself out there more. And I liked the fixer, Desi, the fixer. That's what I do at my job. I fix stuff. They have asked me to take over negotiations with A-list celebrities and things, so they know I am the fixer. But before I became the rescuer, I was the coach. When these people started, I made manuals, training manuals, how to do, and it's like, did y'all read page 4? So now I push back a little bit, because I can't fix your problems while I'm still doing all my job. And so this has been really eye-opening for me. I'm going to move my rescuer into more a coaching aspect of it. Still remain vulnerable so I can continue to learn, because if I'm teaching everybody, who's going to teach me?
That's right.
So,
and to be able to say to others as well as to yourself, I don't have the answer. And that's vulnerability, because it's admitting that, we're not perfect. And as a recovering rescuer, I don't have the answers. And it's okay sometimes to say, I don't. Yeah. As opposed to I can. Mm-hmm.
We have a quote, a comment in the chat. Joel, thank you for sharing. Gwen says these kind of tools should be HR platforms for their teams. Young people are flatlining emotionally. Yes, Gwen, thank you for saying that. And before Michelle closes us out, we are looking to bring these trainings into organizations and to do lunch and learns internally. And so if you are a part of any organization or know of any organizations that could use talks like this for their employee resource groups and their employee development, professional development, which is personal development first, which is kind of what we're rooted in, that personal development for professional thriving, please do feel free to shoot us an email at hello@39quartz, QUARTZ.com, or send us a message. We'd be happy to make a connection. So, Michelle, we always wish we had more time to spend with you guys, but it is time to close out the session. So I'm going to pass the mic back to you.
Yeah, so once again, on Amber and my behalf, we just are so grateful to see so many people who have attended our webinars in the past and some new faces. And we want you to just, put on your calendar as a reoccurrence the first Wednesday of every month from 12:30 to 1:30. We've got some really exciting topics. Our November topic is, what is it? Oh no, you gotta go. All right, so in the theme of wellness at work, our talk is going to be about what we need to give up. It's a pretty broad context, but in terms of becoming empowered professionals, what do we have to give up in order to be optimal in our jobs and to be powerful in our roles? There's limiting beliefs. There may even be relationships. And you know what, ladies, it may even be, I've got to give up this job, or I've got to give up this department. There's something either intrinsically, internally within our way of thinking, or extrinsically in our reality world that we want to be able to sort of do some excavation and exploration to figure out what do we need to give up in order to become the purposeful professionals and powerful women that we are inherently designed to be. So stay tuned for this. It's going to be yet another juicy topic under the wellness at work theme for fourth quarter.
Fantastic. So with that said, it is just about 1:30, and we thank you all for joining us. As Michelle mentioned, we're going to drop in the chat where you can watch our replays, but you can catch our replays on our...
I think I put it in the chat.
Oh, perfect. Okay, great. You can catch those in our YouTube channel. I'm also just putting here, I don't know if you put this one, this link to share with friends that would like to sign up. bit.ly/purpose-driven 2021. If you have friends that you think could stand to come for some free professional development, personal development, and coaching, then please invite them to join us. We will see you all next month, same place, same time. And if you're joining us on Facebook, yay, we're glad you were with us, but come join us on Zoom next time so you can get in on the conversation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You all are amazing. We appreciate the time and space we get to share with you, and we will see you next time. Bye.